what's up, guys? My wife, Mrs. Guns, is in the chat, so everybody say hi to her. And today was not supposed to happen. We were supposed to get all this done yesterday during my live stream, and we were having some technical difficulties. And typically I don't do live sound demos and live reviews because you guys are going to find out that I'm actually a really terrible guitar player. A lot of you guys already know that. But when I'm doing a produced video, I can take as many tries as I want to try to get a clean take. You guys are actually going to see how terrible of a guitarist I am today. But I got the kinks worked out in the guitar that we ran into yesterday. If you guys joined me live yesterday, as I unboxed it, that was very fun. And I think I'm going to do more live unboxings like that because that was kind of I didn't really know what to expect, and it was fun bringing you guys along with me. You know, when I was missing screws, you guys were trying to help me find them, telling me to look in like different bags and stuff. And it was kind of fun, and it was very exciting because we had no idea what to expect with this thing. And so it was super cool. So I'm going to be doing more of that. Hopefully our internet connection is a little bit more stable today. I'm using a different device to record on. I'm recording on an iPhone with the rear-facing camera instead of an iPad with a forward-facing camera. So hopefully the quality is a bit better. And I'm also doing that because if my mobile internet dies, hopefully the built-in internet in my phone will take over and we won't have any issues. So we're going to try it out, see how it works. But let's go ahead and get into the review of this guitar. Who said that? What?
Dylan said it looks way better.
Dylan says the video looks way better. All right, thanks. Hey, Dylan is here from Dylan Talks Tone. I was in his live stream earlier today where he unboxed his kit, and we'll talk more about that later. But it's cool because, so Dylan and I have become friends just through this great guitar build-off. We met up, hung out, and we've been keeping in touch and stuff. And it was really cool because getting to hear his opinion on it, I think really validates my opinion on this. And we'll go ahead and get into it. Bottom line, there is a lot to really like about this kit. Now, I'm going to go through a lot of issues that it has. So I'm going to be completely honest with all the issues that it has. And it's going to sound like this thing is not that great of a kit. But there's a lot to love about it and reasons why it's actually a very good thing that this kit exists. So we'll talk about that more later, but we'll go ahead and get into just the overall review of the assembled kit, what I had to do to make it playable, and I'll pepper in some sound demos in between because it actually, you know, it has decent tone and it's got a lot of tone options. So let's go ahead and get started. Firstly, I know you guys are wondering if I ever found the neck screws, and the answer is no. I completely assembled the whole thing, and those neck screws were nowhere to be found. They only gave me 2, and then I had 2 additional screws left over that were the wrong size. So, honest mistake, they probably just threw the wrong screws in. It's very obvious, if you guys watch Dylan's video, it's very obvious that they are throwing these things together without much care to get them out the door as fast as possible. So there's going to be little mistakes like that. So my solution was, because I'm using the rear-facing camera, I can't tell if that's showing up in the screen or not, but I'm assuming that you can see it. You can see that there's 2 different colored screws in there. Those are just little machine screws that I had on hand. I actually happen to have the exact correct size and thread pitch for what I needed to connect the neck, so that was lucky. Obviously, they were metal screws, and if you can see, they were metal screws with a flat head, as opposed to the black screws with the Phillips head on it. So when I get around to building this entirely, then I'll put on the proper hardware, but this was enough to get us going. Speaking of attaching the neck, so you guys saw when I was unboxing it, I tested the neck fit and it was a little bit sloppy. And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal because it has the threaded inserts with the machine screws. So once you lock that down, especially with the materials this guitar is made out of, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of a difference. Well, it turns out it does make a little bit of a difference because when I originally strung it up, the strings were not perfectly centered on the neck. And so when I put it together and I started playing it, I realized the E was kind of sliding off the frets really easy, the high E, sorry, not the low E. I realized, I was like, well, shoot, this thing's bad. And then I remembered we had a little bit of play in the neck pocket. So what I did was, I unstrung it under full tension, or no, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't unstring it. I left the strings on. I didn't even detune them, just under full tension. I went ahead and loosened those machine screws, and I pulled on the neck and tightened those screws back down, and that got the string centered up. So I think the slop in the neck pocket is actually a. What were you doing there?
I'm trying to let you know. Dylan gave you a super chat and he said, "Wait, a neck must be nice. Count your blessings."
Yeah. Thank you, Dylan, for the super chat. I You don't have to send me any more super chats. I sent you a few, and if we just send our money back and forth, then Google's just going to keep dinging it and commissioning it. But thanks for the super chat. Yes, so we're going to get to that in just a minute. Dylan doesn't know about this issue with the having to center the neck because his kit didn't come with one. So we'll talk about that more later. So, but anyway, I was able to get the strings aligned properly, and so having that little bit of play in the neck, I think, is both a blessing and a curse. Okay, because this is not made of wood at all, you can't, hand fit the neck to the body. You can't get the perfect string alignment. You don't have any control over that. And they're going to be manufacturing these with pretty loose tolerances just due to the way that they're made, right? And just knowing that you guys are not going to have the tooling required to hand fit a carbon neck to an aluminum body, they know that. So they're leaving a little bit of slop in there, is my guess, so that you can get the proper string alignment. Now, that does mean that you actually need to be conscious. You actually need to be conscious of that every time you attach your neck. If you're going to be disassembling it and reassembling it, you need to be conscious of how the position of the neck when you crank it down. But once I cranked it down, it stayed perfectly centered and it plays really, really well. So the next thing I'm going to address on the neck is the nut piece was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. It looks like it's probably made of the same material as the actual neck. And I did check in my email thread from Koloss. I'm calling it Koloss. Dylan calls it Koloss. I'm going with Koloss because that's kind of a Greek pronunciation. So that's who knows how it's actually pronounced. That's why I'm going to say Koloss. Anyway, they told me that this was a carbon fiber neck in my original email. That's why I was expecting to see an actual carbon fiber neck. According to their website, they're now saying that it is a carbon fiber impregnated sort of plastic. So carbon fiber sort of reinforcement in the plastic. And as I was drilling the neck out for the tuners, I've worked with carbon fiber before. Gosh, I'm having a hard time talking. I've worked with carbon fiber before, and it's nasty stuff to work with. It's very difficult to drill, very difficult to cut, and it makes a nasty poisonous fume when you're drilling and cutting it. It also makes nasty poisonous dust particles. So you have to wear proper gear when you're doing it. When I was drilling this, it drilled like plastic. Okay, I saw the little strings of plastic coming up. There was no dust. It just unstrung like plastic. And then I didn't even drill the full depth of the screws. I only drilled about halfway. And then I was able to just, the screws, I was able to screw them in without, the rest of the way without the pilot hole going the full depth, which tells me, again, this is not actual carbon fiber. This is a plastic that's been, has some sort of carbon fiber makeup in it, perhaps, maybe. I realized when I took the nut off, which was not an easy test, they had this thing globbed on with glue, but I had to take it off so that I could fix it. I noticed when I looked down inside the slot where the nut is, so that when you guys watched my video last night, you saw when I took this cover plate off that it was hollow with some reinforcement in there. That's, how we decided that it was not actual carbon fiber, but it was actually just, a plastic sort of injection molded sort of makeup on the inside. That runs throughout the whole neck. I could see through that slot where the nut was, that sort of pattern runs through the whole neck. So the neck is the same sort of similar hollow makeup. It's got a truss rod, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the nut was way too high, and the slots in it were not cut wide enough for the strings. So these are Koloss brand strings, which are terrible. I broke 2 of them just tuning it up and detuning it during my setup. But the 3 wound strings on it would not sit down inside their slot. So I had to get some nut files and open up that slot so they would actually sit down in it. And then I sanded it along the bottom of it to get it to be the correct height. It's still not perfect, but it's close enough. Now we're talking about like a DIY kit, right? Okay, so last night I was saying putting this thing together was more like putting together IKEA furniture. Dylan said it's like putting together an erector set. Yeah, very similar. All the parts are kind of made up and you're just kind of assembling it, right? So, but cutting the nut, like that's an actual like DIY guitar kit thing. So I would say that's a non-issue because if it's a DIY kit, you're expecting to do that sort of thing anyway to get a good playable guitar. Except for the fact that they glued it in there really sloppily. I mean, there is like glue glistening all around that nut slot. And when I was pulling it out, you know, I was being very gentle. I was trying to cut it with a razor blade. I was wiggling it with some needle nose pliers. When I eventually thought that it had broken loose and pulled it out, the nut actually snapped in half. So I had to super glue that back together. Once I got it out, I super glued it back together and then finished my setup. And it's the super glue's holding up because, again, this is sort of more of a plasticky substance than it is carbon fiber. That being said, now that it's set up, I can tell that the nut, it really does, I mean, whatever material this is made out of, it's not like your typical plastic. And so it does have really actually surprisingly good tuning stability, and it, especially for having this type of tremolo, so you can really get down on it, and it comes back eventually. I mean, sometimes you have to give it a little shake to get it right back to your perfect pitch that you started with. But it's surprisingly, you know, you wouldn't be able to do that with a typical guitar kit out of the box. It wouldn't have that good a tuning stability. So the material the nut's made out of, pretty good. Know that you're going to need to do some work to it. I wish they wouldn't glue it down if they know you're going to need to do some work on it. Right, so that's frustrating. All right, the tuners. Now, like I mentioned, I broke 2 strings tuning this up and detuning it. I don't know if that's related to the tuners. I have gotten cheap tuners before that have had some burrs that cause strings to break. One of the strings broke at the tuner. One of the strings broke a little further down, probably somewhere around here. So I think that was a fault of the string. I'm going to assume this was also a fault of the string because I strung it up with not even high-end strings, just some more kit strings that I had laying around. And they haven't broken yet, and I've been playing on it all day. So, and I've detuned it and retuned it several times during the setup process, and they're holding up okay. So I think the issue was the strings per se, not necessarily the tuners. The tuners aren't the smoothest, finest adjustment, but they get the job done. They are typical kit tuners, and that's what I'm going to say about all this hardware. Is it's like your typical kit hardware. And so there's some issues here and there that you need to work out. We'll talk, actually let's do a sound demo first before we talk a little bit more. I want to talk about the electronics. Let's move over to a clean tone. So we're on the neck pickup here, and this is coil split. And then humbucker. Wow, I nailed that, didn't I? You'll notice my D chord goes in and out of tune. That's because I didn't spend quite enough time doctoring up the nut. That's something that I can fix. But if I mash into it too hard, you can see it goes out of tune. But that's because I didn't set up the nut properly. So pretty cool that it has coil splitting from the factory. I said that the wiring harness was pre-wired. That was mostly true. It actually wasn't totally they could have wired more on it. Let's just say that they could have wired more on it. And so I went ahead and took the liberty to wire it actually the way I wanted it. According to the website, the wiring diagram, they would make it so that up is neck split only and down is bridge split only. And I made it so that up is both split and down is both humbucker. So that way, I just think it makes more sense that way, but that's personal opinion. Really, normally I would just do 2 different switches, and so I could coil split them individually. So. Let's play a different tune. Let's see. This is the middle position with them split. Humbucker. See, I'm awesome at this. So, whoa, that wasn't even the right chord. There we go. Obviously, like I mentioned, I'm not really a guitar player, so I'm just kind of faking it. So yeah, love the coil splits. I think that's awesome. It's, you know, it works great with some gain. Let's gain it up a little bit. This is obviously split. I'm sure this guitar gents if I knew how to gent. Anyway, I've been having a ton of fun playing this. I think for, you know, having realistic expectations for the pickups, the electronics, the tuner and the tremolo, I think it sounds pretty good. I'm just playing through...
People are picking up on the sound because everyone's saying it doesn't sound good. It sounds tinny.
It sounds tinny,
and
okay.
Maybe your amp is not the best amp.
Yeah, my amp is not the best amp. This is just a little Donner practice amp. And this is the reason why I typically don't do this stuff live, because I can't go through my recording software through my phone. Maybe there is a way to do that, but I haven't figured it out yet. Anyway, so I guess you'll just have to take my word for it. But here's the thing. I mean, if you are a tone snob or a tone junkie, this is not going to cut the mustard, okay, as is. But we expect that when we buy a kit. We don't buy kits with the exact pickups and hardware that we expect to have in the final product. That's the whole point of a DIY kit, is that the included electronics and hardware are there to get you going, but we all have something different in mind in the end, right? So I will be obviously upgrading the pickups and the electronics. It does come with a battery box, which we talked about last night, but there's no active electronics in this, okay? And the reason why it has the battery box is because there are active models, and due to the nature of how this is manufactured, it would make sense for them to only have one body style that has a spot for a battery box. So no faults to them there. Right now it's just a placeholder, but then we can put active electronics in it, which is cool. So I'll probably won't do active pickups, but I'll definitely do some sort of preamp, which I think would be really cool. So it gives you the option. You know, I like to build my guitars with lots of different versatile tones. So doing some passive pickups with an active preamp I think will be super cool. The tremolo, as I mentioned, I turned this off. Probably shouldn't have. So it's starting to go out of tune just because I've really been slamming on that tremolo. Actually, maybe just a little bit. It's actually still pretty good. So the tremolo I actually really like, but it does have an issue. And again, you know, we're going to chalk it up to kit hardware is not the best hardware. I like it. It's got good tuning stability, and I love the matte. It sort of has like a powder coat textured finish on it, which kind of matches the powder coating that's on the aluminum. I do have an issue with the high E bridge string saddle. The part that is underneath it is not milled out properly spaced for the two set screws. So it actually doesn't sit perfectly level. It kind of is a little bit off kilter one way or another. You can kind of rock it back and forth, which I don't love. Now that's something that's forgivable and fixable. Again, this is a DIY kit, and I could definitely go in there with a file, clean that up in 2 seconds. So not a deal breaker for me. I do want to mention, I forgot to mention this with the neck. So the neck cover plate, and this is something that Dylan had an issue with his as well, is that the cover plate doesn't quite fit properly. So, and I have a feeling that's due to the powder coating on it has added a little extra texture. So it doesn't quite sit perfectly countersunk in there. And if you press it in, then you're just going to bend the aluminum. So what I'm going to need to do is take a file or some sandpaper and just kind of take off the outer layer of that powder coating so that it can sit flush. But for now, I just don't have it on there. The input jack on the back. I mean, props for trying something new, and we'll talk more about that later. But this was just not a good idea. Playing with a strap that sits and pokes you kind of right in the hip. It's not a good spot. It puts pressure on the jack, puts pressure on the ends of your cables, not places that you want to put pressure on. So great idea to have it on the back. I've been thinking about doing that for a while now, but in a way to where the cable can come through the strap and into the back where it's hidden, where people can't see it, but also in a way that doesn't interfere with playing or put extra unnecessary stress on the cable or the output jack. So props for trying, but I don't love the placement. And so when I build this up, I probably will consider putting that in a different spot. I think that I've talked about just about everything. Oh, so the roller string tree that came on here, it's the one piece of hardware that's not black. Everything else is black. Well, I guess the pickup selector and this coil split switch are also not black. But it just kind of bugs me. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And I think what's happening, and I think this is, again, with the neck screws that we're missing, I think they're just throwing these things together with whatever they have so they can get them moved out. I mean, they're trying really hard to meet that Christmas deadline, I think, and they're missing it on the quality control before these things ship out. So I would like to see that black. The pickup selector switch is not a typical pickup selector switch. Typically, you'd have a single pole, double throw on switch, three-way toggle switch for a pickup selector. This is actually a double pole, double throw on switch. Again, it's really poor quality, and this is something that Dylan gave me a heads up on his production version, the one that came pre-built. He said that his pickup selector switch was going out on him, And so I made sure I coated these things in deoxit to really preserve and protect them. When I originally wired it up, the bridge pickup worked only in the bridge pickup position. It didn't work in the both position. The neck pickup was just fine. So what I ended up doing was I actually desoldered it and soldered it onto the lug on the opposite pole, and that fixed it. So it's a double pole, but only one of the poles worked. So again, I think it's testimony to quality. But again, these are the kinds of things that we expect when we buy a do-it-yourself kit. You expect to upgrade the electronics in the wiring. You expect to upgrade the pickups. You expect to upgrade some of the hardware. You expect to give it the full setup, and with the nut. And I wanted to talk more about the truss rod. Truss rod does work, but you get very minimal adjustment. But it does adjust. I was eventually able to get the proper neck relief. It originally was back bowed just a little bit, and I cranked on it quite a bit, and I finally got the forward bow that I needed to be a perfect setup. So it does work, and it is necessary given the material that it's made out of. And the frets are fairly level. If you're not a snob for trying to have the lowest best playing action without any fret buzz, it'll get you by. I'm gonna redo them because I know they can be better. So, but again, that's a thing with the kit, is the frets are always hit and miss. Are we getting any questions, babe?
Lots of comments, but
lots of comments,
yes.
but no questions. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I'm not blabbing too much. So
You could do a Q&A because then
Yeah.
they can ask their questions.
So I'm gonna give just some real quick thoughts on this. Well, I've been giving some not real quick thoughts on it this whole time, but it sounds like there's a lot wrong with this kit. And I think for the price and for what I was told, I expected more, and so I was a little bit disappointed. I think currently the price has been changing a lot on these. I think originally they were supposed to be $299. Last I checked, they're $359. When I'm paying that much for a kit, I would expect less to be wrong on it. But we're talking a standard wood kit, wood body, wood neck. What you're paying for is the gimmick, okay? And I call it a gimmick, but it's really not much of a gimmick because the aluminum body is really cool. And the plastic carbon impregnated neck, whatever this is actually really cool. And so what you're paying for, it's like if you upgraded a kit to have a 1/2-inch flame maple cap on it, then you would get into a kit price of around $350. Now, it would still come with the same junk hardware and electronics, right? So when you think about what you're getting neck and body wise, I would say that it's worth it. Now, before you rush out and buy one, remember, Dylan's didn't come with a neck. So
Some questions now, so you might want to do a Q&A.
All right, so I'll just wrap this up real quick. Bottom line, this is going to be a great kit once they work out the kinks on it. And by kinks, I mean once the busy holiday season slows down, they can put a little bit more thought and effort into making sure they're actually shipping these shrink wrapped with all the parts inside. I think this is going to be a really cool thing. If you want to roll the dice and order one now, by all means, go for it. But you're just know that you're going to be a test dummy, and you may or may not have to deal with their customer service. I'm sure that they will send Dylan a replacement neck, but he is an influencer, so they're going to prioritize getting him his parts before they get you your parts. Just know that. So you can roll the dice on it now, but my opinion is wait for it to calm down. Wait until you start seeing some other influencers get them later down the road and seeing that they actually get all the parts with it. Would be my honest opinion. I think it is a really cool kit. So we'll take questions now. My wife keeps telling me to wrap it up.
5:30.
It's 5:30. Oh, I've been going for too long.
Yeah,
okay.
you talk a lot.
I know. Sorry, one more thing before the questions. This also represents, this company spent a lot of time researching and developing something new and different. And that's probably the thing that gets me the most excited about this, is that we have a company where everyone else is copying everyone else's body styles and whatever else. We have a company that has a fresh body style. This is very cool. If they can up the quality, this is going to be an iconic body. If they do a good job with their trademarking, this is going to, Koloss is going to get on the map for this body style with the aluminum and carbon fiber. And you just aren't going to be able to get an aluminum body, carbon fiber neck at this price point from anyone else. So I do want to say, like I said, I hold off for now, but what this represents is something that's really cool. that's going to be really cool. Let's say. All right, now for the questions.
Does it feel cheap?
Does it feel cheap? It did when I first set it up. Sorry, not when I first set up. When I was assembling it, it felt cheap because strings were breaking. The nut was, out of whack. There was glue spots kind of all over the place and things like that. And then when they tell me, I can show you the email. It says carbon fiber neck, and I was expecting a carbon fiber neck, and what I got was plastic. It felt cheap. It felt like they cheaped out. But now that it's set up, I've been playing on it. I know that if I put a decent set of pickups and a decent set of strings on this, that it would not feel like a cheap guitar anymore. It would sound great. And it actually feels pretty good. It feels pretty good in the hands. So there is some neck dive, as you can see, because of the neck's quite a bit heavier than the body. Overall weight is pretty similar to a standard Stratocaster with the tremolo. So I thought it was going to be much lighter. It's about the same.
Basically, what do you think it's worth, and is it worth $350? Could it be cheaper?
What do I think? Do I think it's worth $350, and could it be cheaper? I think it, again, when they have the kinks worked out and you get all the pieces that they tell you is coming with it, I think it will be worth the money. I really do. Could it be cheaper? I mean, it could be cheaper if maybe they offered less with it. If they did just the neck and body only, save you a few bucks on junk hardware and electronics that you're probably not going to use. In my opinion, I always tell people to not forego the hardware with a kit. I tell them to buy it. That way you can get a complete usable guitar from day one, and then you can spread out the costs. You can upgrade stuff down the road. That way you don't have a guitar that's missing pieces until you have enough money to finish it. So could they save you money on it? Maybe. I don't know. The fact that they keep raising the price tells me that, well, either it's supply and demand, or this is actually costing them more than they thought it would. Next question.
Is a wooden neck an option?
A wooden neck, as of now, is not an option for the kit. You only get this neck. But I'm telling you guys, this neck is cool. Okay, I had my doubts about it last night, but now that I've played on it, it's solid. And the cool thing about this neck and this body is that it's not going to be finicky with the elements the way a wood neck and a wood body would be. Okay, a change in humidity can throw off your setup. A change in altitude can throw off your setup. This is going to be less prone to that sort of stuff. And honestly, if I can't figure out something cool to do with the body, I might just take the neck and use it for another project. Put it on a wood body or something. Because I do really like the neck. I think the neck is cool. Next question.
I'm missing.
All right,
What
sound
scale is
demo
it?
while we wait.
What scale is it?
What scale is it? It is a 25.5-inch scale. So very typical scale.
Do you have any plans to paint it?
Do I have any plans to paint it? Maybe. I don't know. It looks a lot cooler than I expected it to. It's obviously not my style. What I was going to do was I was going to strip it and leave it raw aluminum and maybe relic the aluminum, let it rust and beat up, kind of go for more of a James Trussart sort of a look for it was my original plan. But I don't know. It depends on how easy this comes off. So cool thing about however they painted this, somebody said that they might have done some anodizing on it. I don't think that's the case because
Someone asked
of
us to anodized.
the sparkle iridescent coat on it. I believe it's painted. So I think it's some kind of powder coating, maybe with some other layers sprayed on top of it. But because these things are painted both sides, I can sort of practice on the inside of these covers to see how easy the paint's going to remove, if it's going to remove at all. And if it's going to be worth my time to do the entire body.
Scar My Guitar sent you $5. Bang,
Oh,
bang,
super chat from Sean, Scar My Guitar. Thanks, man. What
He
did he say?
just said, bang, bang, the ching-a-ling.
Bang, bang, the ching-a-ling. All right. That sounds like Sean Jolie if I know him at all.
Andrew just asked if you like it.
Andrew asked if I like it. I like it now. I was frustrated with it when I was unboxing it. Not sure if you guys caught that yesterday during my live stream. I was frustrated with it. I was frustrated that it was missing parts. I think a lot of my frustration came from my internet failing, though. So last night when I was building this thing, I said this to my wife as I was building it and setting it up. I said to her, I just want this thing to be so cool, and it's just not. So that was my opinion of it last night. But now that I've had some time, I've given it a proper setup. It's not perfectly insulated. I still need to do some work on the nut, but I'm beginning to see what this thing can be. And that's what has me excited. And honestly, I was a little disappointed when I watched Dylan's live stream to find out that they missed his entire neck. That's frustrating to me, which is why I'm not going to tell you to run out and buy these now. I'm going to say, let's let them get their crap together first. But I think it's going to be really cool. And like I said, what this represents is something new and different and something we can actually afford. So I do like it now. That's a really long answer. Another question?
Aluminum doesn't rust. I'm pretty sure aluminum does rust.
Somebody said aluminum doesn't rust. I don't know that it actually rusts, but it can get, there are some ways that it can be corroded. I don't know. I think rust is a very specific type of corrosion. I think there are other ways that it can be corroded. But rust, it can deteriorate. Let's say that. So I'll deteriorate it. I'll relic it. I won't necessarily.
Dylan says.
It corrodes. Is that what Dylan says?
Yeah.
Okay. Dylan, thanks for sticking in this chat and helping me figure out what to say here. It corrodes, according to Dylan. Which, by the way, if you guys aren't following Dylan's channel, go over there as soon as this live stream's done and give him a sub and watch his live streams because they are a lot of fun. New format today. He had Leslie behind the camera. That was a lot of fun. So it was cool hearing her voice chime in from time to time. So definitely check that out for sure.
Mrs. Tone.
Mrs. Tone. Yes. I don't know if that's going to be your name. Mrs. Talks Tone.
Mrs. Talks Tone.
All right. We got any more questions? Little elevator music.
Are the pups active?
What?
Are the pups active? I don't know.
The pickups are not active. Has a battery box if you want to put active pickups in it. Pickups are not active though.
You already talked about what mods you have in mind, right? Someone asked
So I have not talked about what mods I have in mind, and that's because I haven't quite figured it out. I am jealous of Dylan's production guitar that he got. Has a locking tremolo on it and locking tuners. So I'm thinking I might go that route for hardware. For electronics, you know, I'm probably going to put in something that's a little underwound because I love bluesy, jazzy tone. But then I'm going to put in some sort of preamp, whether that's a mid-boost preamp or some kind of active EQ. That way we can get some more extended range tone out of it as well. Because I would like, even though this body style doesn't lend itself to jazz per se, I just love that tone, and I'll play this guitar more if I put those kinds of pickups in it than if I only just put in heavy metal pickups. So I'll probably do something along those lines. I do like that it does come with a battery box. It's like built-in expansion bay, is what I'm going to call it, so that you can put in active electronics in it, which is pretty cool. So we'll do something like that. I might replace the volume and tone with push-pull pots so that I can do my coil splits that way, and then have the switch for the mid-boost. And then, of course, I'm going to replace the pickup switch with a real pickup switch.
That reminds him of a stormtrooper.
Yes, it totally does. And so my wife asked me the other day what my favorite color was. And I told her that I don't really have favorite colors. I have favorite color schemes. And my latest color scheme that I like is a gloss white with matte black accents. So I've seen a lot of cars this year that come like that. A lot of Jeeps will have gloss white, but then they'll have matte black fenders, matte black effects, details, and that kind of stuff, lettering, the Jeep or Rubicon lettering. I think that looks so slick. So that's what I love about this, is it's sort of that gloss white and matte black. And it totally looks Stormtrooper. It really does, which is, I'm not sure if I like or not. And again, I think if you're a metal player, this is the kind of finish that you're going for. You typically like those more eye-catching, I mean, the shape for one, but also the eye-catching paint jobs and stuff. You don't necessarily go for the wooden relic sort of look that I typically do when I build a kit. So that's another thing about this, because it does come pre-painted. I think it would be cool to add some matte black detailing, some sort of pinstriping or, decals or something to this. Do we have another question?
I think we're over time here, so 5:41.
41 minutes. We're way over time by 11 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you guys for joining me. Sorry about the internet issues. It looks like we made it through without a hiccup today, so I'm happy about that. Remember, I was about to say life rocks when you're home wheels. That is the wrong catchline. That's for my other channel, Rockin' and Rollin', our family vlog channel that travels, follows our adventures in our motorhome. Until next time, do not let your circumstances define what you are capable of. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, and I will see you in that next video.